Hello, everyone. Welcome to our gathering tonight, our listening session for our first time. Before we begin, I thought it'd be nice to just begin with a word of prayer and acknowledge that this is a time where God is present. God, we recognize your grace. We pray that you would give us hearts that are like your heart. Help us to hear what you to hear and to feel what you see, what you care about, what you're passionate about. And so, Holy Spirit, we pray that we be aware of your presence here, and we invite you into this place to do as you wish. We pray this in Jesus' name. Amen. Hello, so I'm Pastor Sam Kim from Japanese Baptist Church, and I'm so honored that you could be here in this special listening space Zoom session that is live. And what we're going to do today is a dream that has kind of come about through just a meeting with Reverend Jeffrey and some people from my church, and thinking about the story of New Hope Missionary Baptist. And what we'd like to do is to begin, hopefully, God willing, a series of sessions where we listen to the stories of the community and to hear about how can we hear what has happened in our community and how can it move us to do what God has called us to do, to move in justice. So I'm very excited to be here, really honored to have our guests. And before we begin, I want to acknowledge some of our clergy friends who are here in the place. So I'd like to invite up Reverend Dr. Tim Phillips from Seattle First Baptist. And afterwards, I'd like to invite Reverend Angela Ying just to give some greetings and to just say hello for everyone who's watching here today. So Tim, if you could come on up, I'd love to have you.
I am Pastor Tim Phillips from Seattle First Baptist Church, and I hope you don't mind. I want to read just a little section from our history. On August 20th, 1967, Pastor Gus Hintz told the congregation that opportunities for education, housing, employment for African Americans would never occur unless there were changes in attitudes, and I would add policies. We cannot be spectators, Hintz asserted. Regardless of where we live, even those who have fled the city, which is an interesting way to frame that, right? Even those who have fled the city must be involved, whether they want to be or not. He then asked the church members to vote for an upcoming ballot initiative that would have prohibited redlining. Now, I read this for two reasons. One, because it's been 54 years, more than half a century, since Pastor Hintz called Seattle First Baptist Church to action. And the city's development practices continue to impact the lives of African Americans to this day. So Pastor Hintz would expect me to be here and to listen. And two, because history is one thing, but New Hope is another. Pastor Hintz asked people not to just be spectators, but to do something specific aimed in the direction of hope. And I just want to say that I'm well aware that white folks like me are quite quick to want to do something without listening first. We have a history of deciding what's best for everybody else, whether they like it or not. So I'm here as a listener. But I also want to say that I'm not a spectator, because there may be things you want me to hear about what needs to be done, and I'll be listening. I'm honored to be with you tonight. Thank you, Dr. Jeffrey. Thank you, Pastor Kim.
Good evening. It's great to be with everyone. I am the Reverend Angela Ying, Senior Pastor at Bethany United Church of Christ, and along with Reverend Tim Phillips and Reverend Dr. Robert Jeffrey and so many other faith leaders, we gather because we know how important it is to hear stories of people, our brothers and sisters, predominantly African American, who have lost and had their homes stolen or taken away. I have lived and worked in the South End for over 30 years. I have fought in solidarity and in love with my brother, I would call Pastor Reverend Dr. Jeffrey from the New Hope Baptist Missionary Church, senior pastor there. And with our Black sisters and brothers, I believe it is time, as I would know you would agree, that Seattle act and follow in our calling for racial, economic, and climate justice and in equity for our Black brothers and sisters. It is time for, we have a long history of wronging these people, namely just gentrification and in the Central District and South Seattle, resulting in thousands upon thousands of our brothers and sisters, predominantly people of color, who have been displaced. As leaders, we must acknowledge the existence of persistent and institutional racism that has decimated Seattle's African-American community. And as Reverend Jeffrey has shared with me, compared to other racial groups, African-Americans have the highest arrest rate in King County and the highest conviction rate in the state. This is why Black lives matter, and we together will continue to protest racial injustice, economic inequality, police brutality, and mass incarceration of our young people. The displacement of longtime African-American residents from our Seattle's beloved central area is the result of racist policies originating from 400 years of slavery, segregation, racial covenants, redlining, urban renewal, and now gentrification. Black families are priced out of Seattle's unaffordable housing market, and we will hear these stories that I hope you will graciously listen to, so that if you have a story, you will come forward and share that with Reverend Dr. Jeffries, myself, Reverend Phillips, and others, so that we can get the word out and make a difference. It is high time that justice roll down like waters and the ever-flowing stream, and that we bend the arc toward justice. And to quote Spike Lee, do the right thing. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your words. I truly appreciate it. Reverend Douglas Avilesbernal, our executive minister from the Evergreen region, he was unable to come at the last minute, so he is joining us by Zoom. So he just wanted to give a quick greeting through Zoom to everyone who's present. So John, did you get the sound? Okay, so yeah, Doug, if you could just say a quick words into your microphone, if we could hear you. We can't see your image, unfortunately, but we can hear your voice in this room.
Wonderful. Please, I'll begin by saying, please do not let my not being there present in person be a sign of this not being as important as I think it is. It is extremely important for us. As Pastor Sam said, I'm the executive minister of the Evergreen Baptist Association of American Baptist Churches. And it is a joy for me to be part of this effort and to join you, albeit in this way, but I'm looking forward to being a physical presence with you as well. What I did want to say is that we are indeed fully in support of this effort. We are thankful that churches from our region are part of this effort, and we're eager to work with all of you to see what we can do about this injustice. I just wanted to give you a quote from James Baldwin. Not everything that is faced can be changed, but nothing can be changed until it is faced. So we as Evergreen Baptist Association are ready to encourage our churches to be part of this effort. We know that being allies is good, but I think we also know that we want to be conspirators with you, so that we are shoulder to shoulder with you. We're joining in the fight. We're also joining in whatever comes back at you. We want to be solidarity activists alongside you by listening to you and supporting and working collaboratively with you. We're ready to do that. I myself, I'm ready to do that. And as you can see from Japanese Baptist Church hosting and Reverend Dr. Tim Phillips being there on behalf of Seattle First and others, we are glad to be part of this effort. We're eager to hear what you say, as well as to share it as broadly as we can and do whatever else we can do to work with you, alongside you. Listen deeply, learn from you, and may the Spirit then guide us into a future where the struggle for justice is persistent, loving, and changing of Seattle. Blessings to you all, and I'm glad to be here from a distance. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Robert Jeffrey, and I am here. I'm going to be your host tonight as we listen to 3 stories from the community. We're going to probably each session will do no more than 3 to 4 stories because of the time that it might take to do these stories. And so I'm delighted to have 2 of those stories here tonight. One man could not be here tonight, but we will call him and he will do his story over the phone. So he's an elderly man, and that's the best way we can do it. So we're gonna call him and do his story over the phone. But I'm pastor of a church in the central area, New Hope Missionary Baptist Church. Our church has gone through some curious and interesting things through in its history. But in 1969, land was taken from the church. The Parks Department forced the pastor. We have letters from him saying, please don't take the land, but they forced him to sell the land for $34,000. The land now is appraised at $2,700,000. This was land that the church did not want to give up, land that the church needed for its growth and development, but they were forced to give it up by the city of Seattle. This plays out all across the central area. Our goal and hope is that in the coming weeks and months, I don't know how long it's going to take us to do this, to compile stories of people who have had similar experiences in Seattle, who've lost their property, lost their potential, and many of them lost hope. So the first story we will hear, we're going to hear, is that from the gentleman, and I got to pull it up on my phone. His name is John Houston. I'm going to call him right now. Hello, John. How you doing? This is Reverend Jeffrey.
How you doing?
Okay, we're on now. We're broadcasting, and I know you couldn't be here tonight, so we want you to talk about your story just a minute.
Okay. My name is John Houston. I grew up in Renton. Before Renton was the Renton it is today, there was probably 8 Black families that lived on one street in the Renton Highlands. We were pretty poor. My father was a pig farmer and junked cars, mother cleaned houses. Anyways, they both grew up in rural dirt road Louisiana. My father came out by himself in 1948 and started working at the shipyards in Bremerton. He had farmed most of his life, so he couldn't get used to that punching the time clock, and so he worked there 5 years still and saved enough money to buy 10 acres of land in the Renton Highlands, where at that time that's the only place that Black people could buy land. White people didn't want it because it had creeks. It was kind of swampy. Certain areas was kind of swampy, so that's the only place that Black people could buy land. They cut down trees for the first house. Wasn't much of a house, but that was where I came home. I was born in Seattle in 1953, and I went straight from the hospital to that land. That's what we knew as home. We worked hard. My mother and father worked hard. There was it was a small Black community there. There was a barbershop, there was a woman who did hair for the ladies and girls. There was a little store, and there was Papa Sims had a little barbecue place back there. But it was the black community of Renton. And it's funny about that one little street. I'm gonna throw this in here real fast. There was 6 professional athletes that came from that one little small community. That street was about a mile long. And there was Clarence Clancy Williams, George Reed, Frank Reed, Gary Reed, Tony Roden, Jr. and Senior, all lived on that one street. And that was the professional athletes. So that was amazing about it, about that area. Everybody knew everybody. We raised pigs and chickens, so we sold eggs and sold meat, sold pork chops to others in the area, in the community. Some people had large gardens, greens, corn, tomatoes. But anyways, as Renton started to grow, and Boeing started to grow, people started moving to Renton. And so all of a sudden they wanted that land that they didn't want before. And there were several families out there that had large plots of land that were moved out. We had 2 houses burned down on that property. They wanted our land bad, and they built a elementary school, Honeydew Elementary School, and our land was right next to it. So that somebody wanted that land for a long time. There was 2 houses burned down, and there was explosives set off on our front porch. The school district, Renton School District, had offered to buy it. A developer offered to buy it. My mother and father turned them down. But after the explosive went off on the porch, then we were hit with eminent domain. So they couldn't scare us out, but they could use eminent domain. Renton School District ended up getting the land supposedly to build a new junior high school. There wasn't that many people out there, and there was a junior high school 2 miles from our front door. But that's what they used to get the land. We still don't know. So somebody involved with the schools that knew a developer that wanted that land, because on that land now is over 100 houses, expensive homes on that land now, and they gave my mother and father pennies for the land. So one thing with eminent domain, you have to use the land for public use, because that's the only way you can use eminent domain is for public use. So they had to go to court to turn around and sell it to the developer. There was it was in unincorporated King County at the time. The year after they sold it to the developers, it went to the city of Renton. It became part of the city of Renton. So the city of Renton to this very day is making lots of tax dollars off of that land. So yeah, I could be wrong, but I read and hear stories from across the country about ways that Black landowners have been stripped, cheated, or had their land stolen. So the other community can, get wealthier. So that's my story. I don't know how it's gonna end up. But I want to know. I want to know as much as I can about the land that it wasn't just fun as kids living there. We had to build pig pens. We had to clean out old junk cars. My father tore down houses. We had to do all that stuff, but it was our place. It was our place. We had a pond where me and my brother built rafts, and we caught frogs and snakes, and it was a place that you sometimes hear stories about Black families. Why don't they have anything? Why don't they? Why isn't there wealth in Black families? Well, I know several other families that pretty much the same thing happened to. All along Martin Luther King in Seattle, Black families' houses paid for, but Sound Transit needed some land, so they go straight to a place where Black families live and take their homes and take their land and give them very little, but they gotta move to Kent or Auburn or Federal Way or somewhere way out to be able to live away from their families, away from their neighbors, people that they live next door to for years. So, and it's a system. It's a system built in, I believe, around the way that this country started. We're supposed to be less than, so we can be treated anyway. My mother and father did it the right way. They went to work every day. They bought land. They raised their family. They did it the right way, but that wasn't. That's not how we're. I think a lot of times they expect for us to be on street corners or selling drugs or robbing people. I think it's expected. So it split my family up. My father was tired of it because he had experienced some of the same things in Louisiana, and he wanted to move to Moses Lake, and my mother didn't because me and my sister and brother were still in school in Renton, and our friends were here. So they split up. My mother and father split up. So it wasn't only the financial stuff, but here was 3 kids without a father in the house. My mother had to work 2 jobs. So it gave me and my brother and sister time to pretty much roam, and we got in some trouble. And so it's not only financial, it destroyed it separated, split up our family. I saw my father 3 more times after that split up. He was tired of renting. And that's what, and I'll say it, racism's tied into it completely. And that's what racism does. Racism works. The people who invented racism, designed racism, knew what they were doing. But we have to be smarter. We have to recognize it. We have to talk about it, and not let it dehumanize us. Not make us withdraw and back away. I've been around Renton most of my life, and there's still racism, and it's out in the open. It's by security guards, it's by police. It's still, my office, I own a small business in Renton, and a month ago, I was stopped in the lobby of the building that I rent. I'm a drug and alcohol counselor, and I work with a lot of the kids in the juvenile system. In the juvenile system that are Black and brown, mostly. I asked for those kids. And I was stopped and told that I had a domestic violence warrant. They even had a picture of a guy. They said they were going to call the police. I said, go ahead and call them. I said, I know you probably want me to run, but I don't have any warrants. So I heard them on the phone with 911 saying, they named off some guy's name. We got him here in the lobby. So when the police come, they're ready. You know, they're ready to do their job. You know, if I call the police, I want them to come too. But it could have been ugly. Arbery in Atlanta was killed because he was out jogging and they thought he was a burglar. So they shot him. Trayvon Martin, he looked suspicious in a neighborhood that not many Black people lived in. He got shot and killed. So, Reverend Jeffries, I hope you don't mind me saying this, but we're going to protest that building in Renton November 8th. Because I've seen too much of this in Renton in my lifetime. I'm 67. I'm not a young man, but I have children and grandchildren that I will do my part in slowing down at least some of this stuff. I want to honor my parents and for their hard work, for doing the right thing, but having it taken away from them. You know, so yeah, we're going to protest November 8th. We're going to have some TV. I know we're going to have Cairo TV there, Deborah Horn. But it's I'm glad Reverend Jeffries and New Hope is doing this. I don't know exactly who I'm talking to or who's in the audience.
Were you talking to some other people who will testify or who will give their stories tonight, along with the pastor of First Baptist, the pastor of the Japanese Baptist Church, and some of the officers, and Reverend Angela Ying and K.L. Shannon and other people who are going to give their testimonies tonight. But you're talking to also a large audience on Zoom.
I just let the kids go out for a break, but I'm going to get back in there too. But I am willing, Pastor Jeffries, to partner with your group in any kind of way that I can, because the people aren't going to pay attention unless we stand up and open our mouth and say something. They're just sweeping under the carpet, just like they did my parents' property. Waiting for. I'm the last one of my parents' children that is active in the community, and when I go, it'll stop. So the more we spread it around, and our kids know about it, and our grandkids know about what was happening, I think we can at least bring it to their attention of the wrongdoing and the reason that many of our Black families are poor. That we're not, able to will or leave anything for our children or grandchildren. There's a reason for it. It's not that we're lazy, trifling people. It's sometimes we have to work sometimes 3 times as hard to get ahead or make any progress, and then they try to throw up a barrier in front of you. So thank you for listening to me. Pastor Jeffries and Cassandra, you can feel free to pass my contact information on to anybody. If any of the other listeners are on Facebook, there's information about the protest on my Facebook page. It's John Wayne Houston. So thank you, and thank you for inviting me.
Thank you, John. And we will be hopefully coming over there to help you with that protest on the 8th. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much. That was John Wayne Houston. He was the first person to give his story in what I hope will be an ongoing series of stories from the African-American community in Central and South Seattle and Renton, of how property and land has been taken, and the suffering that came as a result of it. Right now, there is a minister here, and her name is Reverend Eula Clark, and she's going to be coming up this way right now and making her way up here, and she's going to give her story about her experiences with injustice and how her land was taken. I think it was her church was taken from her. So she's going to be coming up as now. She's one of our elders. So she's taking her time to come, and she should take her time to come. She's earned that privilege, and she's going to come now. One of the things that we want to say to all of you who are tuned in, if you know anybody who has a story to tell, anybody who is wanting to give their stories, let us know. We'll be doing this for the foreseeable future. I think we'll be doing this for a while, but we're going to do it until we've heard as many stories as possible for us to hear, because these stories need to be told. Welcome, Reverend Clark, Reverend Eula Clark. Thank you for coming, Reverend. And I know that it wasn't easy for you to get here tonight, but
no, it sure wasn't.
but we want to thank you for showing up and coming, because this is very important. And I'm going to just let you start, and you can just start wherever you want to start. Maybe you can start by telling how you got to Seattle and when you came, and then you can go to what happened.
First, I want to say I thank God for being here. Hallelujah. I want to say I thank Pastor Jeffrey for asking me to come. And I thank for all of you that came out tonight. I magnify God in that behalf, because time is winding up, and this makes me happy to see what's happening right now where we are sitting here tonight. It's just joy to my soul. Now, concerning myself, amen, I've been like a Christian all of my life, been serving God most of my life. And so I'm happy that he let me be here long as I am, because so many have gone on, so many places I have attended since the pandemic. So it's a blessing just to be here. I would like to say tonight I came to Seattle when I was 10 years old. And so now I'm 82 years old. Praise God. I brought me and my sister here at the time when when I first came to Seattle. I belonged to Goodwill Baptist Church under Pastor Mitchell. And so I was there for quite a while as a young child. And then, praise God, I was there with my aunt, and I give God the praise because of my aunt who made a way for me to get here to Seattle, Washington, because it was not only just bad in some places, it looked like it was bad everywhere. And I discovered in my time life, I've learned a lot from just living. You hear me? We was on a plantation in Alexandria, Louisiana. That's where I was born. Praise God. And that's where I started coming up, me and my sisters. And it wasn't always good. Every day was not always a good day. But I give thanks and glory to God. I didn't know what was going on at the time. But as I began to grow, I did learn what was going on because I had to pick cotton like the rest of the family. Had to plant gardens, do what's deemed necessary. And at that time, I found out what sharecropping was all about. And knowing that we only had a certain amount of money that we made, but we still made it and was happy. And so that's one of the things that God brought me out of. And to say that I come here to Seattle and began to settle here with my aunt that brought me, because my mom was a very, very, very sick woman when she brought me from Alexandria, Louisiana, because she had quite a few of us to take care of. But we pulled through that point. And after getting here, my aunt was a very, very nice woman, and she was a hardworking woman. Showed me what all hard work was about, and the things that we had to do to make it through. Many things we had to go through, and I found out those things once I got here. I discovered that everyone was not your friend. Everybody didn't speak to you, and some of them did. And you was happy when they did spoke to you, because you was saying, well, I wonder why those people are not speaking, because that's what we come away from people. They might not have liked you, they might have hate your guts, but they still spoke to you. So we learned, well, oh, these people are not going to speak to us. So I told my sisters, I said, don't feel bad, sister. Don't feel bad because the people are not speaking to you. I said, you go on anyway, but you make sure you speak to them. Remember what grandmother said, and my grandmother used to always, you got to know your enemies, and you got to treat with them with love too. Love your enemies, girl. I never will forget this. Love your enemies, girl. Because you don't never know what's going on there. And so we learn those little parts about being in Seattle. Because when I come to Seattle, it was just like going to London. It rained every day. I mean, the rain really did come down. And we had a nice time in Seattle. When I got to be 12 years old, I was getting older and learning much, much more. I got saved. Now you see there's a difference between being saved and being unsaved. But in my salvation, I learned that you got to play it real. You got to tell the truth and shame the devil. So we had to know what we had to, if we went to school, we got to know that we went to school and we better get it right. That's where we better go. We went to school. We found out that the schools here was much different than it was in Louisiana. It was much, much different, as well as our surroundings. It was awful. At least it wasn't as bad as it was in Louisiana. If you went to the Dairy Queen, you had to stand at the black side of the Dairy Queen. You didn't get your ice cream up there where the Caucasian got their ice cream from. But we were all in different places. But we were still allowed to stand at the window. So we stood there and was happy because we didn't know no better. We learned how to really love God and what God meant to us when we got saved. I mean, we really did get saved. And then we got sanctified. And then we were born again. People in church with unborn spirits is something other else. You thought you had some problem, but I bet you got them now. You see what the problems are. You can see them good before your eyes. Praise God. And God let us know too. There was a time when we had to go out and pick beans, just like we went out and picked cotton in Louisiana. We picked beans here in Seattle. And we would go walk all the way down Jackson Street to get to the place where we had to catch the bus, which was at Sears and Roebuck's, to catch the bus to go out to where the farm was to pick beans. And when we wasn't picking beans, we was picking strawberries. Now, that didn't say we wasn't gonna get no money, but the money they gave us, it was a shame to tell. Wasn't nothing in our pockets much. It didn't amount to anything. You couldn't buy you a pair of shoes with the money you made picking berries, picking green beans and stuff like that. But we had to do that in order to help make means meet. But we did it in faith. Also, we want to say too, not I won't say we. When I got up to be a teenager, we start going to high school and all these things, but it had everything happening in Seattle that you ever want to think about. We were very, very, in the central area, things was different. Those stores that used to sit down on Madison Street and Jackson Street and all those streets, all of those things were mostly, like at the particular time, was Black people was running those shops. They would play their radios and have the radio programs you could get, the gospel channels that you can have, and things like that. And then you could go to the stores that you wanted to get your food from, and you got good food. You didn't get the type of food that the people giving to us now. We didn't get that. And we was given stipends out at that time, just like they gave them out in Alexandria, Louisiana. They gave them out up here to us too. We was getting corned beef hash in a can, sometimes chicken in the can, but we got it. That's the stuff we had to put up with it. And it came from the base. That's where you got your food from. My brother and them used to working as a soldier on the base. But that food they used to call it rationing. You got that from the air base and wherever else you could get it. And at that time, we also learned, I said, sister, these people have hogs up here. Just like we had in Alexandria. And we looked at it, my sister said, oh, sister, I didn't know they had hogs up here, girl. We gonna eat those hogs? I said, yeah, we got to eat those. We got to eat that hog meat too, sister. So in my answer, yeah, if you won't eat it, you will eat it. And we know what she meant when she said that.
Tell us about the property what happened there.
Okay, the property of the church. Yeah. Well, the property that we had at the church was different than I was going to talk about. This other part of the see, because my aunt had some property here in Seattle.
Let me stop. Just go ahead and tell your story.
Okay. She had a beautiful place. Now her place was taken away from her. I got a chance to see her get her place taken away from her. I didn't know what was going on, but I did know what they talked about a lot. And the people, it was just something, they was taxing them for more money. Every time they look up, they was taxing for more money. They was just really literally taking money from look like out of their pockets. And so that's where it went wrong there. They hated to give up the property that they were on it because they was down at the waterfront, and that was prime property at that time. And if you live down by the waterfront where you can see the race boats when they coming in, you had prime property. And so that's what they had, prime property. But you would sometimes see paper on your door. And they would be talking about your property, even that you didn't even talk to them. You was talking to them about the property because you was gonna have to get in touch with them about that property. And no, you didn't want to sell your property. And my aunt, my uncle used to have to go through a whole lot trying to hold on to that property. And they finally took it from them. I'll say they took it from them. They took the property from them. Okay, now for our church, I started church in my home after I was a grown woman. And it was a small prayer started in the home, but I did what the Holy Spirit told me to do. I started church in the home, we had our prayer went on, our classes went on, And we just had a wonderful time. Before you know it, the place was all filled up. And I said, boy, I got to get out of this place and find a bigger place to get in. And so the Lord told me, he said, well, you go up on 18th Avenue and you'll see a building there. I did what the Lord told me to do. And I went up there and I looked at it. I said, oh, I told my son, I said, they got an empty space up there, but it was a little small place, almost like how big is my house inside. And so we began to get up there and we began to pray. And the more I prayed, the more the people came in, the more people got saved. And then the place just got filled up with people. It was bombarded with people. And I was praying that the Lord would put us in a place that was special for us, that we wouldn't have to do no more moving around. So Pastor Cairo, I don't know who know him or who don't know him, but God spoke to Pastor Cairo at the time and told him to speak into my heart and ask him, did I want the church? Because the church was available. And that's what he did. Now, some people won't help you like that because they won't help you because you're a woman. Yeah. But we still got it. He said, did you want? I said, sure, I wanted. That's what I've been praying for. And that's what the Lord did. Gave us a church on that corner. Well, I started in 1975. And we had that church for 25 years on that corner of Finley and Rainier. And so God had blessed us with that corner. And it's, well, one man came up, and it was at a time he didn't think that we was coming. And I had to drove up, but I was seeing him all down under the ground, just feeling it. What is that man looking for under the corners of these churches? You know, praise God. But anyway, he asked me that I wanted to buy the place. I said, sure, I want to buy the place. He said, well, then you can buy this place if you want to buy this place. He gave us how much he had done, was going to offer. But at that time, things wasn't as expensive as it is now. But we went on. It was just a handful of us when we went in there. It was like we had around about 50-some people when we was in there. But then it got more and more and more. Looked like the more we prayed and fasted, the more people came in. And so with that place, God blessed us to have an outreach center. And we was helping the homeless, feeding them, getting people off the streets see, people ain't supposed to live like people living out here now. I ain't never seen anything like this. Old as I am, I never seen people living out on the sleeping like dogs on the street. That is just awful. It's just awful. They're getting rich off of the poor. And it needs to stop right now. We got to put a stop to this thing. Just like when I was in the program called No Gun Allowed, No More Gun. Well, I was marching. I was walking up and down there like I was just 12 or 13 years old, but I was walking it. We used to march all the way from the camp. We started camp and walk all the way down to downtown. And that's what we come against the enemy at downtown. But most of all, this is what happened. This man knew. See, people know how to manipulate things. They want to be hid, but they can't be hid because God won't let them hide. They really want to be hid, doctor. They want to be hid. But they can't hide. Ain't nowhere to hide from God.
We're going to expose them, right?
They ain't supposed to know. But listen, this man, I had to go to get a lawyer because the man said I owed him 2 months of rent. I said, I don't owe you no 2 months of rent. What are you talking about? We pay you every month. When you get your money, you get it from us because we send it to you through the post office. And he didn't want to accept that. I said, you just got to accept the truth. Now, somebody at your building where you own down there in Portland, Oregon, done stole some money from you. You need to talk to him because it's my money that he done stole. And you know what, Bishop, that hurted me bad. That hurted me bad. Because I had quite a few people in the church too. But they'll tell you, people will come in your church and they'll tell you, I'm with you, I'm by your side, I got your back. Don't look at that backside thing, because they ain't with you. And so I had to go get a lawyer. After getting the lawyer, this lawyer did not want to separate. I mean, he didn't want to own up to these people taking this money. But I say, do you think I'm crazy to give up my money, to give it to you, for you to tell me I didn't pay it? I said, this ain't that kind of program. So I told this the little lawyer, I said, listen, here's what we're gonna do. Which y'all wasn't thinking good then. I said, I'm going to do some work through us. I say, now when he get his money, I want it to come to your office. And then you're gonna see who I'm paying. Let the money come to your office. Let him see who I'm paying. Then I say, all you got to do is just send him this. If you want to mail it to him, I'll get you some something so you can mail the finances to him. He said, oh no, well, I can do it like this.
Were you buying the building at this time?
I was buying it. I was natural born buying it, Pastor. And so it was just awful. Under this situation, I said, I haven't heard from the lawyer. I wonder how come you haven't got in touch with me and tell me what's happening? So I called down there. I said, I haven't gotten in touch with no one since I've been sending the finances through you. Is the man getting his check now? Oh, I've been trying to reach you, Pastor Clark. I've been trying to reach you. I haven't been able to get you on the phone. I say, well, I've been at home. Why you could not reach me? I thought that was something for them to try to whip up something like that. I said, and I tell you what, I said, I'm not gonna be bothered with you no more, because I see you're not a fair man either. And when you're not dealing with fair people, fair things don't come up, not like we expected. And so we began to lose that building. And I told him, I said, I'm gonna come from under you. And that's all right. Thank you for giving me my finances that you have in your drawer. I'll take those. I'll take every envelope that you claim that they done sent you. I'll take that.
Did you get it back?
I got it.
Okay.
I did get it.
Yeah.
I was aiming to get it, Pastor. I was aiming to get it.
So they took the building?
they still took this building. Now, let me tell you, I was coming out of the church, this particular, it was on a Saturday. And here come this guy driving up, and he said, "Are you Clark?" I said, "Yes, I am." "Well, how much are you renting this place out for?" I said, "What you talking about renting it out?" He said, "Well, don't you rent this space out here?" I said, "No." I said, "I have church here. This is a church." I said, "Don't you see that sign say United Deliverance Temple?" "I'm not running. I ain't got time to be renting out unless I'm trying to save souls for Jesus." And he told me, "Well, I got the key." That's what the man shook in my face and told me, "I got the key." I said, "Well, I don't know how you got the key." I said, "But I'll tell you one thing, you probably won't keep it." But he's down there in that building, that same little old dentist building that you see with the dentist sign up there, that the crook got it. He got it, Bishop. If you ain't a bishop, I guess you gotta go make it wrong.
No, I'm not.
But we thank God I was able to get out of that. And then God set me down in another little space he had and gave me, but they wanted too much money to be in that place. They was only renting.
So you told me that after that happened, you lost your house too.
No, I lost the house. I didn't lose the house,
Okay.
but I sold my house.
Okay.
Because my husband had got in some bad trouble.
Okay.
So I went on and sold the house.
Thank you, Ms. Clark. Thank you for your story.
You sure?
Thank you so much.
Thank you for accepting.
Thank you so much. And so that's Miss Eula Clark, Reverend Eula Clark. God bless you. And I know it's been struggle most of your life. And
Yes, it's been a struggle.
but we're gonna believe God for your blessing. And I thank you for coming out here. I know that was a struggle too, but we have people that's going to take you home tonight. So
Sorry, I just had a question, I guess, from someone that was just writing on the Zoom chat. They were just asking about your aunt's property, how it was taken away and by who?
Your aunt's property, the property on the lake. Who took that? Do you know who took that property?
The Moskowitz. The Moskowitz.
That's a family.
That's a family. That the whole family left here. And I don't know where they went to, but I do know they took that property. It didn't have to be that way. And that's all I know on that one. So like I say, you got to talk what you know.
Thanks.
I don't want to have me up in court this time.
No, ain't nobody gonna mess with you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I'll take this. Thank you. Thank you. So you can see how these stories are aligning, how same experiences are being felt by different people. As we continue down this road and as we continue, one of the real problems with this whole journey is that a lot of the people are gone, have moved away, but we're going to do the best we can to piece together this whole these stories so that you can get a picture of the real struggle of African Americans in the Pacific Northwest. Praise God. We have one more tonight and one more story that one more young lady who's gonna come and tell a story of her own struggles with losing property in Seattle. Miss Cheryl Peterson is gonna come at this time, and after she finishes, we will be open for questions. Anybody would have questions, they can feel free. We can answer as many of them as we can tonight. And what we can't answer, we'll get back to you on those questions. Ms. Cheryl Peterson. Hi, Cheryl.
Good evening.
How you doing?
I'm well.
Okay.
all things considered.
Why
Good
don't you-
evening, everyone.
Why don't you tell us a little bit about your life and your family and
Okay.
yeah, you have a very, very rich family and rich family life. I mean,
Right, not
yeah.
monetarily.
No.
Right.
Okay.
Good evening, everyone. I'm blessed to be here. I am born, bred, raised, and fed Seattle, Washington for 61 years. A little bit about me and my family. Back in the 60s, part of the voluntary, what they called voluntary busing program. So my brothers and I, and all of my neighborhood friends, we were all voluntarily bused out into the North End. So most of my childhood upbringing was spent in schools on the North End of Seattle, Decatur Elementary, Eckstein. By the time I got to 7th grade, 8th grade, I begged and pleaded my parents to please let me go to a school in the neighborhood from whence I come. So they graciously okayed me to go to Garfield. So I'm a graduate of Garfield High School. I have worked since my dad started us working when we were 8, 9, 10 years old. He had his own janitorial business here in Seattle, was one of at that time, there were, I believe, 7 African-American owned businesses. Janitorial service was my dad, and his 5 children were his first employees. Sat many a nights in the back of the car while my dad and my mom both cleaned buildings. And as my siblings and I got older, we were part of that crew. So fast forward, working since I was 16, summer youth program, working for my dad. Fast forward, 18 years old, graduated high school from Garfield while still working for my dad. And then went to a little bit of college. I'm a single parent. I have 1 child, 19, 20 years old. So I rented all of my life until I was into my early 30s. I wanted to own a home. I had a child. Unfortunately, her father was taken from her, killed in a murder. So it was just me and my daughter. My first home was a family home that I purchased, my aunt's home, right on 23rd between Spring and Columbia, my first home. Didn't know a whole lot about home buying, but I went to some classes and I was able to purchase a home. I then was working, I've always worked. I've never missed a beat, except for when I got pregnant and took the 6 weeks off because I could not stand having 1 paycheck a month. I learned how to budget, but that just wasn't my cup of tea. So I've always worked. I went back to work, bought my first home. I did not know after being in my home, and my pastor blessed my home when I bought it. And I don't remember how many years I had my home, but what happened was I didn't know I was in an adjustable rate mortgage. Yeah, when the market crashed with the houses, I was one of those people who lost their home. So my mortgage adjusted up. And I'm like, what's going on? Where did this come from? I'm getting my mortgage statements in the mail. And so I could only make so much money. But what I kept doing was paying the amount that I knew I could pay. And then as I got paid, you know, I've always been in the every other week or every bi-weekly. I always made sure I had at least 2 checks a month. So my mortgage adjusted up. There was nobody to come and say, Cheryl, we need to see about refinancing you, or can you work a second job? None of that happened. I came home from work one day and there was padlocks on my door. And I'm going, now mind you, I have been making my mortgage payments. It just wasn't what the mortgage company said it needed to be, but I couldn't pay anymore. So it adjusted up, came home, locks on the door, devastated. What do I do? Where do I go? Who do I turn to? So called the number because they left a card graciously. And I called the people, well, you no longer own the house. You got to get your stuff out. And I'm like, how am I doing all this? I got to figure out how I'm packing up my house. My house is a 2-story house. It was my aunt's house that I purchased. And it's crazy because my credit was, I don't know what my credit score was then, but I just know that I was making money and I would have money that I could buy a house, and I was doing that. Adjusted up. I couldn't afford the rent, the mortgage. We moved out temporarily, and I moved to, that's one house, 919 23rd Avenue. I cringe every time I drive by there because that's my house. It was a family house that got taken from me and my daughter. So my grandmother, where the eye clinic now is on 23rd, my grandmother used to own that property. She sold it and bought a big house on 23rd, on the corner of 23rd and East Thomas. My grandmother was 95 when she left this earth. She said, I want you to live in my house. Okay, Grandma, but don't listen to nobody else. I want you to live in my house. Okay, Grandma, great. So moved to my grandmother's house on the corner of 23rd and Thomas. My grandmother's house was paid for with the exception of a loan that she took out on the house to do some repairs. It was a big house. We loved it because we had rooms on top of rooms. It was a 4-bedroom house, but the closets were big walk-in closets that could be another room. Right. So we moved there, my daughter and I. We were there for maybe 3-4 years after my grandmother passed. Lo and behold, didn't know. So I'm paying the loan she had on it. That was the least I could do. House was paid for. This is all the loan. Okay, great. Got notice in the mail that the loan on the house, now mind you, my grandmother had passed. It passed to my mom, but she says, Mom wanted you to live in it. You live in the house. I'll pay the loan. No problem. I'm working. I've always worked. So guess what? Again, here we go. The loan amount adjusted up. Well, unfortunately, yes, I'm working, but that loan adjusted up to a point that I could not afford to pay it. So I reached out to my mom and I'm going, Mom, you're on a fixed income. Now, mind you, my mom has worked all her life, 5 kids with my dad. They separated, but she went to work and now she's retired. I can't mess with her retirement. She's on a fixed income. So I said, Mom, what do we need to do? She's like, well, let's go to the bank, see what they say. And yes, I'm going to say Bank of America, because I believe and have always believed that they don't have favor for Black people. They did not give me any resources. They did not try to help me. So we ended up coming to the conclusion that we would sell the house. Now, mind you, this house is sitting on a quarter lot. I can't remember the square footage, but it's right on the corner, 303 23rd Avenue East. That house now is worth probably pretty close to $1 million. It has a view. When you go to the top floor, you can see Lake Washington. So we sold the house, right. It was paid for. The loan was only $100 and some thousand, but I couldn't afford to refi and pay the note. We sold that house for $200 and some thousand. to find out 2 years after my mom sold it that she had to pay an additional $20,000 because there was a mistake made with the bank, Bank of America, and somebody didn't disclose something, but because my mom received the money and sold the house, she had to pay an additional $20,000. So the money that she supposedly made after selling the house was less because she had to go and pay $20,000 so these people wouldn't come back and put a lien against her house or her for the amount that was on that house. So in my lifetime, I'm only 61 years old. I have lost 2 houses. I am now trying to buy a house. I'm a federal worker. I make, I think, pretty good money. It's not the median, but I make pretty good money. I cannot, please hear me, afford a house in the city where I was born, bred, and fed. Every house that this realtor is showing me is nowhere near my church. I work up on Beacon Hill for the VA healthcare system. I cannot buy a house in the city of Seattle. Everything that they're trying to show me, Auburn, Kent, and even across the water. And if I move across the water, excuse me, I'm gonna have to have a gun for protection because there's not too many people who live across the water who look like me. And I'm talking Kitsap County, Bremerton, Gig Harbor, Port Orchard, because for the amount of house that they say I can afford, I gotta go south or west. I work up on Beacon Hill. I don't have extra money to pay for commute. My brain can't stand the commute. I have an illness right now that I can't drive a whole lot. So you want me to move way south or west. So my daughter and I, we're gonna cohabitate because I wanna leave a legacy for my daughter. She doesn't have a dad. She has one grandmother and me. I wanna leave my daughter with a house if I should die tomorrow. I can't be in Seattle, so I gotta reestablish, unless they can figure out some miraculous thing that could happen here in Seattle, that I could qualify to buy a house. I'm living cohabitating with my mom right now. She has been in our family house. My mom just turned 85. So she's been in Seattle for 60, she's been in that property for 65. I'm 61, so 65 years. My older brother is 65. It's a problem, people. It's a big problem. I look at the house that's behind my mom's, which used to be my aunt's. My aunt bought that house for $12,000. It now is selling for $700,000+. The house right across the street from where my mom lives, 1.2. I cannot find a house in Seattle where I was born, bred, and raised to live the rest of my life.
So I think that a point of your story is the subprime lending scandal that hit Seattle during the time you bought your first house. And I think Washington Mutual Bank was shut down because of the subprime lending scandal that targeted Black people, people of color. So there are many ways in which people have been displaced. And one of the primary ways is the subprime lending that the banks engaged in during the early 2000s and the late 90s, and which got people into houses and then quadrupled their payments and to the point where they couldn't pay. This is another scourge that was allowed by the government to be done to especially targeted Black people. And that's another reason why they will have been displaced out of the community. So I think that we've covered at least 3 different areas tonight. One was the radicalization and racialization of eminent domain. The second was just outright thievery. I think that Reverend Clark's land was just absolutely stolen from her. And then yours, the escalating subprime lending, which was a national scandal and which happened in a lot of inner city neighborhoods and caused people to lose their house and caused you to lose 2 homes.
Pretty much.
And now they have a program that if you can get into it, you attend this home buyers class, they give you a certificate for 2 years and they help you with the down payment. They help you, but they're not really helping you because what they do is tack that down payment to the end of your mortgage. So you end up paying it anyway. I just don't have $20,000 to come out of my pocket for a down payment.
Okay.
And even with that, the government, if you don't hurry up and get in, that down payment assistance program is going to be gone. So I'll be back to not being able to buy a house, because what I would have to do now is to tap into my little retirement money that I have if I want to get a house. That is crazy. But I'm going to get a house some kind of way before I leave here and leave it to my daughter.
And I think that that's the spirit of many African Americans and many people right now who are in the African American community who have tried to be homeowners, who've tried to be decent citizens. And like Cheryl, have worked all their lives. I think you said since the age of 10? 9. And bought houses, but were targeted by racially motivated subprime lending and are now struggling. And many of them are now renters and many of them now displaced.
I don't make enough, that's mortgage payment.
Yeah. I know. Well, some of the renters are paying mortgages.
Yeah.
Some of the people who are renting, especially in Seattle, are paying mortgages. So, okay, this is the beginning, and I think these 3 stories sort of highlight what's going to be happening going forward. The 3 areas that we will highlight is eminent domain, the racialization of eminent domain, the weaponization of eminent domain, which was the case in New Hope Church, which lost land that they were forced to sell for $34,000, which is now valued at $2.7 million. That's the case in Mr. Houston. His whole family was destroyed because of the use of eminent domain, the racialization of eminent domain. And of course, then there is trickery and thievery that is done in our community against elderly African-American people, especially women and men, to seize their property and to for no real reason. And then there is the subprime lending, which helped to put many people in the central area underwater for simply borrowing money to fix their homes up, or borrowing money to make their property more appealing, paint their property, fix the roof. And then they find themselves in an unending escalating interest and payments that they can't afford to continue. That's the story of displacement. We will continue to paint that story in the weeks ahead and months ahead as we continue to hear from the people themselves, their life experiences and what has happened to them as they sought to be good citizens, decent people, and the displacement that has come as a result of that. Thank you. Thank you
Reverend,
for
can I
tuning
just
in.
make one more statement?
Sure. Uh-huh.
And I don't know, it can't just be my mom. She constantly receives literature in the mail and phone calls for people wanting to buy our family home. Now, it's unfortunate because there's some African-American elders that decided to go into the reverse mortgage. I think that's a train wreck that is driving down the train track, waiting to crash. Because what happens is, and I don't know that they realize is, you do the reverse mortgage, but if something were to happen, and she has 4 kids left, we're not going to fight over the house because she has her will. But what I'm saying is that reverse mortgage, they say that they give if something were to happen, we have a year to refi the house and pay whatever this astronomical price is. I just see that as a way for them to take the property. Now, my mom's children, me and my 3 brothers, were adamant about not letting that house get taken. So whatever we're gonna have to do as a family, we're gonna do. But the stress that she incurs from people constantly calling and sending literature in the mail, we wanna buy your house. We never said the house was for sale. My brothers get real adamant and say, don't call here. We're not selling the house. And then they say, well, will you ever sell it? And we say, no, we will not. So don't call here. But a lot of people are being targeted in the Central District for those who are able to remain. There's a lot of families that used to be on my street, weed and seed, they lost their houses, or the war on drugs, whatever you want to do. That was a way to get African Americans out of the Central District. And now they're all living in Kent, Auburn, Federal Way, Tacoma. I don't know if anyone west, but they're not in the Central District.
Yeah, I think that's another category, the war on drugs and how that pillaged the community, and how the seizure of houses because of the unjust laws that came as a result of things like weed and seed was implemented. Those are the categories, those are the areas that we will be covering as we continue to talk to the people, the residents who have suffered greatly because of the laws and because of the racialization of money and the racialization of eminent domain and all those things that relate to property ownership in Seattle. Thank you. Thank you for tuning in, and thanks again to Tim and Reverend Samuel for this time, and to the Japanese Baptist Church for being partners with us to do these series of storytellings so that we can paint a picture, a mosaic of a struggling community, and a community with great integrity, but a community that has been targeted and moved, at this point, pretty much moved out of Seattle, Washington, and to a large extent, Renton. Thank you so much for your time.